Hello everyone, JP the Third, VMsNow.com, and we are back. All the extraneous noise has calmed down. The dog has calmed down. My phone is on mute. I think we can make this happen now. So, when we last left off, we made a string of decisions. We're running a slight deficit here, but that's okay. There are all necessary investments that should help us out quite a bit. Well, I'll go through the notes. We allowed our wife, she'll be making a speech instead of a very powerful politician. We are fighting for the cause of women's rights in Sordland. True equality, just not wealthy women, getting all the good stuff. Nia is forming the anti-corruption police. That's going to be a very pivotal key in our reforms. We should be able to track down all the people not only taking advantage of their positions of power, but also who have been funding and supporting the political violence recently, as well as probably people connected to various crime bosses and whatnot. So that'll help a lot of our reforms. Our government has decided to invest in the Lauren region. That was half of this issue here with the budget. But again, that should give dividends. This is one of our biggest industrial regions, so hopefully that will come through. And we also signed in the Workers' Rights Act of 1954. Lots done. Hopefully this is all going into progress. Check the news. Smollett condemns Arcadian soldiers of Lesbia. This is one of our neighbors. Wessex President Victor Smollett on Thursday criticized the Lesbian government for bringing Arcadian soldiers close to the borders of Valen. Last month, Prime Minister Alvarez and President Walker agreed to the construction of several military bases in Lesbia that would station ATO soldiers. The arrival of the first Arcadian soldiers to Lesbia this week, Valen's stance has become increasingly hostile. The man is a tyrant. He doesn't want Arcadia, aka America, too close for him for that reason. In his speech, Smollett said President Walker has succeeded in spreading Arcadian imperialism to eastern Maricopa, which will have consequences for every one of us in the region. Everybody who is aligned with Quintana does not like what's going on right now. In a press conference on Wednesday, Chancellor Hagel of Sordland condemned Arcadia for building a military base on the Ravenos Island. In a statement, Arcadia's action on the Ravenos Island is a provocative move that is undermining the peace and stability in the region. It's also threatening Valsland's national security. However, Valsland is not a country to be bullied so easily. We and the entire CSP coalition will correspond in force if Arcadia does not withdraw from the island. They won't. And this is just a note that I kind of briefed over in the last one before I kind of had enough of all the barking and everything, where Valsland and Agnolia had a little bit of a standoff over the Helgi Islands. So we have one content security pact country and a wannabe kind of trying to stake claim at this point. And also, both the young swords and the red youth have calmed down, and now we have to deal with the brutish extremist. In a treacherous attack, the EFF have bombed the police station and died. Initial casualties are reported as 3 officers dead and 22 injured. The perpetrators have escaped into the Grumman Mountains near Suzerain, and a search was started to bring them to justice. The border guard has been notified of the attackers in case they try to flee to Valen. The Workers' Party of Bolivia condemned the incident. It's not going to get any easier, is it? Of course not. Now, let's get into this. I'm sure this will be lovely. We were at the top floor of the Business Council building, which had a great view of the beautiful Lockman. I looked outside from the tall glass windows. The marking sea stretched as far as the eye could see. It was dotted with many ships towards the horizon. They were mostly cargo ships, carrying precious goods in and out of Sordland. Tracing back the path of the ships, I looked at the harbor. Lockman was home to one of the largest harbors in the entire continent. Many dockyard workers were loading or unloading the containers. Work never stopped here. The door opened. Simon, Mikhail, and Edith entered the room. Mr. President. Mr. President, so nice to see you again. Good afternoon, Mr. President. It's great to see you all again. Simon put down his bag on the table and started collecting his documents while the others slowly took their seats. Mr. President, before we start, I would like to mention some rumors that I heard. The Workers' Rights Act did not sit well with many business holders, especially the first section about the minimum wage. I heard the same. This has caused these businesses to lose millions of rent just overnight. Unfortunate, really, especially during a recession. And they're doing their job, they're representing their interests, but that was the right move. What is unfortunate, Miss Edith, was that this bill was enacted this late. Neither of them responded. We have more pro-business policies than anti-business policies, but that one was one that was important. Simon waited patiently. Once everyone was ready, he adjusted his glasses. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for their work on our tax system reform. We all know how complicated our current system is, and this work wouldn't be possible without you. He turned to me. The ultimate goal here is to end the recession. Before we move ahead and start formulating a plan, we need you to determine our direction, Mr. President. We have a few possibilities as a result of the work we have done so far. We can increase, maintain, or decrease the taxes for large corporations. I believe some of us in this room have a few strong opinions about this. In parallel, we can increase, maintain, or decrease the taxes for small and medium businesses. Let's start with the large corporations, and we'll move on to the small businesses. What is the outcome if we increase the taxes for the large corporations? It's not an option at this point. Our economy is in shambles. Taking what's remaining from the businesses will destroy the economy further. We could balance it by decreasing the taxes on small businesses to put some relief on them. I see. I'm not sure if that's a good idea with the current state of our economy. I do believe that there is one way to get out of the recession. It is through the trade and the economic contribution of large corporations. Increasing their taxes will turn them on you. I will go a step further. Increasing their taxes will have disastrous results, and it will make you an enemy of them. Trust me, Mr. President, nobody wants to make an enemy of them. Maybe you are right. What if we decrease the taxes for large corporations? It's not an option at this point. Our state is broke. We're barely functioning with the help of taxes. So we can't do it. It's not a possibility. Unless we try and balance it with a tax increase for the small and medium businesses. I do not advise that, though. Is there any downside to keeping things the way they are? I am of the opinion that if we don't make any changes, nothing will change. To stop the recession, we need to do something. I think so too. Agreed. Let's hear from the table. What does everyone think we should do? I do not think we can do anything at this point, although I would have preferred a decrease in taxes. It doesn't seem to be possible. Our international trade is driven mostly by the products of these corporations. They are the backbone of our economy. Exactly. An increase will be out of the question. If companies are the backbone of our economy and our way out of recession. So, the game is not being subtle at this point. Unless you were very, very strict with your budget. And this isn't even a budgetary decision, excuse me. It's an economic decision. Nothing's come through yet to where we can move on taxes, one way or the other. So, I'm ready to make a decision. Very well. Maintain the taxes for large corporations. Now, you saw the plus and minus there. That's very temporary. That's a short-term fix. It'll help you. It looks like it'll help you for. It looks like it's a permanent fix, but it's not, because like they said, it'll turn the large businesses against you, and there is nothing saying they can't leave, which will just put you in a worse position. This is an economic decision, not a budgetary decision. You have to do the right thing here. And sometimes, especially if you're a centrist and a capitalist, or either or, the best decision is to do nothing. This will not change anything. We won't gain anything by standing still where we are. I protest against this. Enough. The president has made his choice. Well then, I have taken note of our action, and I will put it to implementation as soon as possible. Simon opened his briefcase and swapped out the stack of papers he had in front with another stack. Let's move on to the small and medium businesses. Is there any downside to keeping things here as they are? Sordland needs change to get out of the recession, but the current state of the economy is in shambles. There's not much change we can do about taxes. That's all I need to hear. I'm ready to make a decision. Very well. Maintain the taxes for small and medium businesses. Very well. I have taken another note. We will look into how to go about implementing these changes. Well then, thank you everyone. That will be all for today. Enjoy Lockhaven. They left the meeting room. I decided to stay a bit longer. I went by the window again and kept watching the Sea of Silence for some more time. It won't be the most popular decision I'll make in this game, I'll tell you that. But the reality is, those were all short-term fixes. If we were able to do a second term in this game, then I would mess with the tax system a little bit more. And if I remember correctly, there will be an option to implement some consumption taxes down the line that will help our budget. But right now we need to get our economy together, and the only way to do that is by thinking long term. We can't move, unfortunately. I'm sure the papers will hate that. Radio's call for peace. Earlier today, Jan Gosmith of the... Well, no, nothing on my economic moves. Thanks. Spoke to the public and condemned the opportunistic looting and violence taking place in cities across Sordland, saying it is not being done in the name of Brenner Circus. He denied terrorist allegations and condemned the attack, saying that the radios have no connection to the violence. He accused the police of trying to sway the public opinion against socialism and illegal Malianism. I got it. I actually got it. Groups such as the radios. Some people are trying to incite violence and take away the meaning of these peaceful protests, as Gosmith warning the protesters about inside people trying to exploit the situation. He also called for peace, saying that the justified and meaningful protests have already lost their course and started benefiting a select group of people. Smolak threatens new military incursion targeting BFF. Vezek President Victor Smolak has threatened to launch military operations in north of Valen, close to the borders of Sordland and Lesbia, against the Bludish rebel group, the BFF, which Vaklavitz considers to be a terrorist organization. Lovely. Young Sword denies the radical and Lockhaven Times arguing with one another. The vice president of Young Swords Cultural Centers made an announcement today denies having ties to terrorist attacks. I or our cultural organization poses no threat to the national security of Sordland or to any other foreign country or state. He said, "We have not and do not plan on engaging in acts of terror or violence." He denied the murder of Bernard Circus was working for the murderer of Bernard Circus was working for the Young Swords, saying that the murderer was just a lost patriot who probably worked alone. The vice president said he believed authorities misunderstood expressed desire to be a martyr for Sordland, which was written in the entrance to his office. Young Swords is not a terrorist organization and will not bow down to fake accusations without any evidence, he said. Blaming the whole organization for the action of an individual who was allegedly a member is absurd. Thornhill School wins the award. National school rankings have announced their results for the 1955 school metrics. Surprisingly, in this category of primary and secondary education, the Thornhill School has surpassed all others with the highest average results achieved in student performance, discipline, facilities, hygiene, and staff happiness categories. The NCR committee gave an award to the principal. Education experts believe the principal and the head teachers excelled in taking responsibility for their duties, which led to better performance in many aspects. Upon closer inspection, the Lockhaven Times editorial team found out how much delegation occurred in the staff that even include diligent teenagers to improve and maintain the operations of the school. And this was, I believe, we covered this last time. Moving on. Speaking of the Thornhill School, let's go take a look. As part of the planned program, we arrived in Laren to visit the middle school. The prestigious Thornhill School was situated close to the suburbs, just outside of the city center. The building was flanked by two hills, each beautifully dotted with shrubs and flowers. Lucian, CR, and I got out of our cars and met at the entrance. Our presence had not gone unnoticed. Apart from our guards, there were at least 10 reporters following us around. And that must be the principal. Right this way, sir. The principal was a man of short stature with a bushy mustache and an incredible beard. and a pair of glasses. He approached us quickly, but was stopped by security guards. They started patting him down and searching him. That won't be necessary. Let him through. Mr. President, such an honor to meet you. We shook hands and I turned around and smiled for the cameras. Reporters instantly snapped a few photos. Welcome to our humble school. Sorry about the security guards. It is a necessity. Standard procedure. Excellent. You must be Mr. Gallade. It is a pleasure to meet you. And Miss Walda. So good of you to come all the way out here. Thank you. At the entrance, the school's motto was inscribed on the wall in giant letters. Insistrin sis an agnica of Garania int ola almagoltene int ola nexus. And that, I'm not trying that one again. That is as good as you guys are getting. Education is the primitive of progress in all societies and in families. Which is what that means. We walked through the gates. There were many students lined up in front of the stairs to the main building. The school band started playing as we entered. All of the students immediately snapped their attention and turned to me. Looks more like a military institution than a school. Exactly. That is what we pride ourselves on. Discipline has the utmost importance in our school. A little discipline never hurt anyone. Sierra bristled. Up to a point, perhaps. Look at these kids. I can assure you that our students are very well educated. In fact, our school is one of the top 10 middle schools in the entirety of Sordland. Now, we will watch the students take their daily student oath. A girl and a boy. Look at these nerds. Went up to the stage and grabbed their microphones. The students turned to them. I am a sword. My strength lies in my blood. Jesus Christ. Alright, go ahead, kids. I respect our honorable elders. I will protect the young. My life belongs to Sordland now, and it will belong to it forever. I will always follow the guiding light of Colonel Saul in the Great Swords. Amor ne vescore, vector sista. We are not going to do anything. I did nothing. I almost forgot the words, which proves the uselessness of this. Excuse me. Which proves the uselessness of this oath. No one even remembers it after that. No one even remembers it after they graduate. If you wish to follow me, we will take a look at one of our classrooms. Through the hallways, we made our way to classroom 7A. As soon as I entered, the whole classroom rose and snapped her attention. Sit down, please. The students sat down. The same boy and girl walked up to us. These are our top students in our top class. This here is my son. The boy came before me and saluted like a military officer. Tell Mr. President what you want to be. Mr. President, I want to be a general, sir. I'm ready to sacrifice myself for my country and you, sir. That is good. You will make a fine soldier in the future. At ease, General. Thank you, sir. The principal squeezed his son's shoulders and the boy looked up and smiled to his father. He patted him on the back and sent him off to his seat. The cameras flashed. This is simply ridiculous. They're raising soldiers here, not students. I am so sorry. I will immediately perform disciplinary actions. How about you, young lady? What do you think about all this? She is our top student in this school. Her excellent grades are to... I didn't ask you. She bent down and gently addressed the young student. What do you think about your school? Just between us girls. I'm sick of having to knit and sew while the boys learn science and chemistry. I'm smarter than all of them. Why do I have to take these stupid handcraft classes? Shh! Don't you know who you're talking? Shut up. Let her speak. Sierra's presence had emboldened the girl. She went on. My math and reading scores are the best in the school, but they won't let me take the classes I want just because I'm a girl. I want to be a scientist, not some soldier's wife. See, I'm encouraging them both. If the boy is sincere about going into the military, I am feeding his dream, and it's also fair to feed her dream. That is true equality. We need more people like you in this country. I applaud your determination. We need more than words. We need action. Concrete action. We need to protect girls like this. The cameras flashed once again. I looked around the classroom and saw a large portrait of Colonel Saul. We will leave, because we still have to negotiate with the conservatives and Saulists in the assembly. Leave it alone. I didn't say anything. Well then, unfortunately we're almost out of time. We have other meetings to attend today. Thank you for the warm welcome. Mr. President, Lucian, please go ahead. I would like to speak with this girl alone. Very well. And thank you for visiting our school, sir. Come on, class. 1, 2. All the students in the class yelled, but the boy who I met was the loudest. Amorna Vescoe! Victor and sister! After another round of photos, we departed. I mean, there's no point stomping on all of the kids. Yes, the educational system needs to change, but we'll work on that. Queen Beatrice Livingston called us a threat to world peace. I'm sorry? Queen Beatrice Livingston appeared on TV to call Sordland not just a threat to peace in Eastern Maricopa, but a threat to peace in the entire world. She condemned the riots and police violence in Sordland and also expressed her worries about the direction Sordland is heading. She urged the Rumburgian army to secure the southern border, citing violent incidents in northern Sordland. Lady, you don't want any of this. In middle school in Laren received a special visitor from President Rayne and Minister of Education Mrs. Walder. Schools and staff at Torrent Hill School, one of the 5 most prestigious schools in East Sordland, welcomed the special visitors on Thursday morning. President Rayne has expressed his wish to visit the successful Torrent School and spend the morning talking with staff and students, joining in with lessons and hosting question and answer sessions with the students. Throughout the visit, Torrent Hill is delighted to have an opportunity to represent the fantastic job that all staff have been doing. Yeah, if I did anything else, the entire thing would have been Rain steps on dreams of children. Today, Kazar Kibner, leader in FP, have proposed the Swordish Prayer Language Act to the Assembly. The proposed bill aims to standardize the language of prayer to Sordland to Swordish in the entire Sordland. Prayer language has always been a controversial topic, as most of the religious ceremony in the Berger region, where most of the Bludish population resides, conduct their prayers in Bludish. The proposal has caused heated discussions between the Bludish MPs and the NFP, resulting in Manson Leak, leader of the independent MPs, leaving the Assembly in protest. Yeah, that's a bit much. Let's start with education reform. We're still in Laren, staying at a modest guest house for the state employees. Sarah set up a meeting with me and Lucian to go over her plans for education reform after our school visit. Lucian was seated across from me at the table, going through documents. Ciara entered the room. After that visit yesterday, I couldn't even sleep thinking about that little boy and girl. I've never been more sure of my intentions to reform our education system. Lucian took off his reading glasses and put it on the table. I agree. An educational reform is necessary. Exactly. Those students have to repeat the same soulless propaganda every single day. They're being brainwashed at an age where their minds need to be free. On top of that, young girls are denied the same opportunity as boys. They're forced into the role of housewife before they even reach puberty. Nothing changed since I went to school. Women like me, Lilius, Nia, even your wife, we had to study twice as hard to receive the same university education that you and Lucian took for granted. Is that the kind of country you want your daughter to grow up in? Mr. President, we need to bring change. We need to free the minds of these young people. They are our future. Very well. What do we need to do for an education reform? We need to keep politics out of the curriculum. Saul should be viewed as a historical figure. Children should have to repeat his name every day. This is actively poisoning young, bright minds. Instead of thinking for themselves, they're learning to take things at face value. We also need to ensure boys and girls receive the same instructions. Handcrafts like knitting and sewing should be taught to both sexes, or not at all. Sordland's youth must be technically skilled and capable for the next decade. That won't be possible with the amount of nationalistic indoctrination and narrow-minded thinking found in schools today. Either we raise a generation ready for the challenges of the future, or not. What will it be, Mr. President? That's what I think. Lucian, what do you think? As much as I respect Colonel Saul, his time has passed. Now is our time. I do think this might be the first step of a larger plan. Reform the education system. You will not regret it. I will get to work immediately. Now that the decision was made, let's move on. Very well. CR skimmed over a document before continuing. With no change in the budget, the ministry was left to its own devices. We've made some tough choices, but still lack additional funds. Therefore, we are investigating if privatizing education would draw enough funds to conduct investments. See? If we gave her the money she wants, she would never. She would never, the pants-wearing socialist, she would never even consider this. What are the advantages of privatization? There aren't many, but it would give us sorely needed funds and increase competition among schools. It would support our overall economic strategy of promoting a market economy. A few minutes of deliberation passed. We can manage without additional funds. The only reason I wanted to consider it is to have more money to improve education. So, what's your decision? Initiate privatization and draw more funds. This should allow for more competition and quality. Will do. And that should be it for now. I will get to work and report back later. This has been a very productive day. I will be returning to Wholesword. Thank you for your time, everybody. We dispersed after spending nearly the entire day together. I took a moment simply to breathe the fresh evening air of Laren. I felt calmer here somehow, but would have to return to the chaos of Wholesword soon enough. So, already we're making some positive change with privatization, cutting into our budget deficit, and we are promoting the free market. Education gap. The education system has become privatized, leading to an education gap in the rich and poor. Yeah, but it's better than everybody being at the same bad level. You have to make sacrifices. Like in times, Rayne is making a mistake. Head of Sordland's second opposition party, Zara Kibner, has said President Rayne will not be able to keep ruling the country without addressing policies that have negatively affected our security, culture, and economy. You blame President Rayne for not being a Nazi. Let's just call it what it is. We're not being Nazis, so he's upset. Administration announces education privatization. The Ministry of Education has recently announced the upcoming changes to the education system. Administration has decided to follow through with the promotion of the market economy and started the privatization of education. There was a mixed response from one side believing that this change will only serve the oligarchs behind the corporations, and the other side defending that this will increase the quality of education. We will see which side is right and the effects of the decision on the long term. Overall, it's a good decision. It's a short-term and long-term good decision. But it's going to take time. There's just no way around it. Demonstrators arrested. Tens of thousands of demonstrators were driven from city centers by riot police this week. According to ground sources, thousands have been detained. The government has still not declared the real number or identity of these individuals. A lot less sweeping poeticism from them on that one. Our railway is almost done. Very nice. Sarah Waldo is reporting that she has begun working on the approved education reform. The details of the education package will be finalized over the coming months. If the reform package is accepted, the next step of the process will be to discuss the indoctrination of education. Good. Now, Katana successfully launched a second satellite which has the capability of radio communication. This means that now Katana radio communications will be able to be transmitted through the satellite for the first time ever, a technology that no other country currently possesses. I'm sure Arcadia is right behind them. They just happened to get the missile first, and Katana got satellite technology first. Alright. Now for the hardest meeting we'll probably have this session. The Speaker of the Assembly. I arrived at the Grand National Assembly, which was only a 5-minute drive away from the palace. Today I had a briefing with Gloria Torrey, one of the leading figures of the USP, to get her approval for the proposal. She was also key in reaching 150 signatures to propose the new constitution, and she had extensive control over our party's conservative and moderate wings. Basically, we get her, I stated the last stream, or a couple of streams ago, where we needed 166 votes and we're only 20 votes away. Basically, we need her on our side, so we're going to have to be prepared to negotiate. She is very smart, so it's not going to be easy. To get her proof, actually, I already said all that. As I walked through the corridors of the Grand National Assembly, I was confronted by my memories of, are you freaking kidding me? Hold on. I swear I had it on mute. I don't know what happened. We're getting through this meeting at least. As I walked to the corridors of the Grand National Assembly, I was confronted by my memories of this historic building. Despite being a member of the Assembly not long ago, it now felt like a distant past, or the distant past. I walked into the left wing of the Assembly, which currently acted as the quarters of the USP. Gloria's office was the first one inside. I knocked on the door and entered. Good morning, Mrs. Torrey. Good to see you here, Mr. Rayne. It was a small, neatly organized office. There were small figurines, photos, and plants around the place. It had a homey feel, unlike my own assembly office when I had worked here. On her gesture, I took a seat. The chair was very comfortable. I love what you did with the office, she smiled. A woman's touch, they call it. Like men cannot have a sense of tidiness or style. Which might actually be true. Anyway, let's keep this simple, Mr. Rayne. We both know why we are here. You want me to give you my support. I do not see why the backbone of the USP would support your rushed reforms. Don't you realize they go directly against the wishes of the founder of this party and the state? These reforms are not against anyone. It's all in the name of democracy. In the name of democracy. Even though you owe everything to Colonel Saul, I think you never liked him, nor the party he built. I would never betray our party. Whatever you intend to do, you will be facing quite the opposition. That's all I can say. You must understand that these reforms are a necessity. Let me explain. How? The USP is a party that knows how to react in changing times. We must lead the nation into the future. That's for the party to decide, not you. I seriously do not know if the conservatives will be willing to support you at all, especially when you're trying to decrease the electoral threshold. You know this would mean bringing the communists into the assembly. You probably either have a deal with either them or maybe the PFJP. Friend seems to be positive about giving you support too. The decrease is important to democratize our elections. I don't know how your ask can even be justified inside the USP. I do not support an election threshold of 8%. This is a dangerous situation for us, as both the WPB and the CPS, I got that right, the CPS will gain more power. I'd rather leave the threshold as it is. Will that ensure your support? I do not know what to say before seeking commitment from you, Mr. Rayne. She's not going to move on that, I guess. If we were willing to bribe members or if we had another workaround, I imagine there's a way we can get the votes without her. But the reality is we need her support. Yes, I'll move the change to the threshold. That's a step in the right direction. But your changes to the Member of Honor laws are a major obstacle. We obviously can't condone any threats against Colonel Tarkin Saul. You want to punish him for the aggressive policies he pursued in the past? Is that the intention here? You can't win this fight, Mr. President. Saul built this republic in the midst of blood and chaos. He demands respect. I'm sure he does. What makes you think I don't respect him? Are you seriously asking me this, Mr. President? I thought we were talking about your proposal. Anyway, I am not going to drag this out for any longer. Will you listen to the party or keep pushing your own agenda? And this is where we can negotiate. We don't, this is why you have both. Because you put it all the way back on her. It's either or. We can protect Saul or change the threshold. One or the other, Gloria. It can't be both. You win. How about I remove the change to the threshold instead? Good. Now we can start talking. I must say that I like the changes regarding the appointment of ministers. That's one positive aspect. But moving on, she looked at the proposal. You know what? I believe I can give you the help you require. She repositioned herself on the chair. I do have one condition. I want you to cancel that speech you were planning for your wife at the Benfey Festival. Mayor Les is not only popular in Benfey, he's one of the most influential members of the USP conservative wing. We wouldn't want to upset him now, would we? Nah, we're not going to give up all that, I'm sorry. Mrs. Torrey, please, you're being unreasonable. He's not the only person who would be upset, Mr. President. You know that. If you want conservative support, you cannot let the First Lady speak in Mr. Left's stead. This isn't about her. It's about women's rights. I thought you'd understand. Believe me, I understand. More than your wife, even. Tell me, why does she want this speech so badly? She wants to give Swordlish women a voice. So do I, but this is not the way. I spent nearly 2 decades in this assembly. I know how real change happens. The old conservative men who hold the power in this government will not listen to Mrs. Ray's speech and suddenly have a change of heart. Rather the opposite. They'll see a shrill, hectoring housewife who slept with the president for a spot on that stage and is now hopelessly out of her depth. That's unfair. Monica's been campaigning for women's rights since I've met her. I'm just telling you what others will think. Listen, I do believe the status of women could improve during your administration. Your education minister has been gathering ideas for a bill that appears quite promising. But you've got to have patience. Having Monica speak now will be detrimental for all of us. Just let Mayor Left have his little moment in the spotlight. His time will be over soon enough. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Gloria, you don't have to go home there. Sorry. No, Monica will speak at the festival. Then we are at an impasse. Alright, Mr. President, I'm sorry I won't be able to help you. I wish you luck gathering the signatures you need. She suddenly stood up. I must get back to work. Thank you for stopping by, Mr. President. She extended her hand for a handshake. I stood up and shook her hand. This doesn't mean we won't be able to cooperate on other matters. I hope to speak again soon. I left her room. Albin in the reformist wing was my last hope to get the needed 150 signatures for her proposal. So we couldn't do it. We couldn't go that far. Hopefully we'll be able to get it done regardless. Even though it looked quite uncertain if we could get 166 votes in the assembly. I went outside. Sergei drove me back to the palace, where I met Lucian and told him the bad news. It won't be easy at all. And I was willing to negotiate, but I couldn't, I understand her point, but at the same time, I couldn't turn my back on my wife like that. After our meeting with Gloria Torrey and further discussions with the party and my cabinet, it was time to talk to Alvin Clavin to get the reformist wing to support my proposal. I also plan to finally present a more fleshed-out proposal and declare our agenda to the party after our meeting. I walked into the left wing of the assembly and entered the quarters of the USP. When I reached the meeting hall, I saw many of our members conversing inside. After taking a glimpse inside, I walked back into the corridor and looked for the office of Alvin Clavin, which was around the back of the palace. When I reached his room, I knocked on his door and he entered. Mr. President, welcome! The whole room was surrounded by bookshelves and packed with files and papers. It was a small office with books and dossiers lying on every corner. I felt claustrophobic. On his gesture, I took a seat. How is everything going, Mr. Clavin? It's been busy. The party has been working very hard, Mr. President. Thank you for asking. How's it going for you in the palace? I'm feeling pretty good. That's great to hear. I want to express my gratitude for passing the Workers' Rights Act. It was one of my most comprehensive and successful political efforts. You and I see eye to eye on many subjects, including this one. Music to my ears. It wouldn't be possible without Pascal Beneval's support. The labor union and several NGOs like Magnus Carter's also contributed to campaigning. I smiled and knocked on wood. Anyway, sir, let's talk about the proposal. Thanks for coming here for my input because there are some subjects where Gloria and I don't see eye to eye. I have to say that most of the progressives are already starting to warm up to you. Your attempt at changing the Constitution created quite a bit of excitement. One could dare say an excitement that hasn't been felt since the 30s. I've already read the proposal you've made. It looks pretty good. Not surprised that Mrs. Torrey didn't give her support. But look, Mr. President, I'm on the same side as you. I won't create any problems. Thank you, Mr. Clavin. Any help from you is much appreciated. He looked down at the proposal. It's looking good. I will support the proposal and get the needed signatures from our wing. I believe the reformist votes that I have will be very important to you. Who knows? Maybe you'll consider me for a job in the government in the future for this. I'll consider you if you prove yourself useful in the vote. Oh, you know I will, Mr. President. I will talk to my guys shortly. I will have the signature soon. Thank you, Mr. Clavin. See you in the conference, Mr. President. I left this room and went back into the corridor. The meeting had exhausted me. I went to the restaurant of the assembly to get something to eat while conversing with other members of our party. I saw Albin talking to his people in the distance. After a while, the preparations for the conference began, and I went back to the conference hall and prepared my notes for the speech I was going to make. It took time to get all the present members of the party inside the hall. Gloria Hall announced me from the stand. I walked up to the stand as everyone in the room started clapping. Dear members of the assembly, I came in to announce the agenda for the future of our country. I started my speech with the reasons of change to the Constitution. The people of Sordland have spoken. They blame our institutions and our system and want change. Can you blame the people? Haven't we had enough with the flaws of our Constitution? We must listen to their wishes and get their trust in Sordland back. I paused as they started clapping and continued. We could afford to be a little craven here. I brought attention to the people's protests and the slight decrease for the popularity of the USP. I explained how our proposals will only be beneficial for everybody. The moderates that sat in the center started applauding. Later, I explained the contents of the new constitution and asked for their full support for the proposal. I asked for each and every member's vote to make a change for the better. The reformist wing on the left stood up and started clapping loudly after Alvin Clavin made the sign. I saluted everyone in the room one last time and bid them farewell before leaving the stand. I walked out of the assembly and back to the palace. It's gonna be a rough vote when we get there. It really is. President meets with the USP. Today, President Rayne has met with the party members in a party meeting in the Grand National Assembly of Sordland, where the current situation of the country and future plans of the party were likely discussed. It was later reported that President Rayne used the meeting to give a speech to the party and announce the contents of the first draft of the new constitution. The details of the meeting were not made public, nor was the draft contained. Balance of power. Now we're getting into the foreign affairs stuff. I imagine, like, Tori had a point, like, there was a way to, if I did not promise it to my wife, if I could have talked her down, then it would probably not have been an issue. But, damn it, like I said before, I'm the one who has to go home to her. I can't say the Sordland's conscription laws. Dear reader, I ask you this. What year are we in? 1880s, 1920? The matter I'm writing about is, of course, mandatory military service. In each time where there are no active wars, why do we still need to have these archaic conscription laws? Let me answer that. It's because if someone profits from it. Not only does this make the warmongering solids happy, it also works out for large defense corporations. The oligarchs are now swimming in money, while we still have to send our children away when they come of age. We are in a modern age. If we want to modernize Sordland and catch up with the superpowers, if we want to lose this militaristic identity so that we can intellectually prosper, mandatory conscription laws need to go. I actually agree with the radical. Jesus. Ready to meet with Smollett and Van Horten. Time for our trips abroad. Let's be involved in watching Sordland's actions very closely and are sure to react to any sort of balance of power shift. Time to be an international player. Arcadia is opposite. Let's take care of this first. The Foreign Minister of Arcadia has offered a substantial amount of financial, logistical, and equipment support to help our country. In return, Arcadia requests refuel and repair access to the Ellery Air Force Base whenever they require. President Dwight Walker has sent personal assurances that this agreement is for peaceful purposes only. That's a yes. The easiest yes so far. Not only does it help our budget, but it also puts us in a very strong position of negotiation. And we want to get closer to Arcadia anyway. Condemnation. The United Contempt Ambassador and also condemned the financial deal between Sordland and Arcadia. I'm sure you do. Ministry of Health has begun working on a health report with the proposal to allow privatization in the health system to potentially generate new resources for the ministry. Minister Benawal is personally overseeing the discussions, and the report with top aides, including members of the National Business Council. The Religious Harmony Bill. For purposes of increasing religious harmony and unity, the following laws are established in Religious Affairs, Section 1 of the RHB. We ensure that the day of the Ascension ceremony from the Ark Sanctuary of Dias shall From now on, only hold sermons in the Swordish language, and get the hell off my desk. We're gonna stop you right there, Chief. President Rayne protects religious freedoms. So they like me for vetoing that bill, but hates me for siding with Arcadia. Of course. Call from Gus Monger. Manga. Excuse me, I was having my first cup of coffee for today when the phone lit up and rang. I swore under my breath. I thought my schedule was clear for at least half an hour. I picked up the phone. Mr. President, how are we doing on this fine day, if I may ask? Fine as well. You? I'm good because business at Sordland is running as usual from my end. Thanks for asking. I'm calling you because I received a call from the CEO of Armadine Industries, Aaron Bridges, about the recent initial public offering on the Ventry City Stock Exchange. As you might have guessed, it's about a little venture investment of 1,000 shares worth nearly $1 million. I'm very pleased to say that we have made gains. The shares will have doubled in price at the IPO and the VCSE, and we will soon receive the profits made from the investment. Isn't that great? Great news. So, how much did we gain? You will love it. In total, we have made nearly 2 million Sordlish Red. I bet that right now you're wishing you had bought more stocks earlier, right? Darn it. Yes, I do. I assure you, this will pale in comparison to what we will do together in the future. The money will be transferred to your personal bank account shortly. Very well. Talk to you later then. Goodbye for now. The line dropped. Money, money. Yeah, yeah. Can't argue with that. Armadine stock jumps to nearly double, just repeating what we already know. Oh, Jesus. Peter, what are you about to get me involved in? We were in the middle of a meeting at the palace about our immigration policy. The ensuing discussion quickly became heated. I don't think so, Mr. Easy. It just doesn't make any sense to me that a foreign citizen should come before a Sordlish citizen in Sordland. Well said. My analysis is also in line with this, especially during the economic recession. We're giving Sordlish jobs to migrants from other countries. What about our own people? Immigrants are the reason our economy is not completely unsalvageable. Look at Agnolian immigrants in Agland. They're revitalizing the whole region and in turn boosted the economy of the entire country. Simon can attest to that. Statistically speaking, allowing immigrants to become part of the workforce contributes to our economy. But I agree that the current situation is very nuanced. With that said, we can't just tighten our immigration policy and expect the economy to remain the same. We need to put our economy in recession at the forefront. Thankfully, we have just started receiving financial aid from Arcadia. And then what? We'll become their servants? First they will place their warplanes in Ellery. Then their armies will come. You will see. I do not approve of this decision at all. I have done this with Sordlish citizens in mind. Nothing else. That's how they take over countries, you know. Mr. Lancia has a point. We have seen it happen many times. Gentlemen, can we please get back on topic? Right. Sorry, Mr. Reese. As I was saying, just before I was interrupted. Look at the superpowers. You see them closing off their borders. Why do you think their economies are in such good shape? They're in their current state because they welcome immigration and use it to their advantage. We need to consider the impact on the economy. Our money flow should be of the utmost concern if we want to have the capability to accomplish actual change. And we need a decision, but before we move on, Mr. President, do you have any question about the current state of immigration? What is the current legal status of immigrants? Currently, all accepted immigrants are given a work permit on arrival so that they can work and contribute to the economy of Sordland. There's currently no limit on the number of immigrants accepted. However, the number has remained stable over the past years. Despite the loss, the fact is many immigrants illegally work for corporations. That is the main issue with immigration right now, not the immigration itself. Nonsense. If not for the unlimited amount of immigration, we wouldn't be in this state. How many immigrants live in Sordland? Official numbers show that we have anywhere between 2 to 3 million immigrants residing in Sordland. Even excluding the countless undocumented aliens in our midst, this is a very substantial amount. The primary issue is the strife they cause between less fortunate sort of citizens and themselves. Including them in the workforce will benefit everybody, including unemployed swords. More taxes mean more services. How do immigrants usually arrive here? There are three major paths they choose. The first one is the Agland to Agnolia border. The second one is Bergia to the Valen border. And the third is the Lauren coast. Agnolians are the largest group. It's a light border over there. Although recently political fugitives from Valsland has been crossing the Grey Sea by boat to land on our coast. Politically persecuted Vantic refugees tend to use the dangerous mountain passes at the Valen border. Many of them also have Blutish blood. Let's move on and see what can be done about the immigration situation. Very well. David Weesey opened his dossier stamped with the seal of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Before we make any decisions, I have to remind you. During the elections, we promised to keep our immigration laws relaxed, which I think is the right course of action. I disagree. We're supposed to control and reduce the negative effects of immigration, like crime and subversion. I see your point, Joseph, but the economy certainly benefits from more immigration. Internal order, on the other hand, suffers immensely. We should tighten the laws to prevent further chaos. David sighed wearily. This is going nowhere. If we decide to tighten immigration, what does that entail? We would have to impose quotas and, connected to that, stricter border control. On top of allowing our economy to take a hit, which we really can't do. Mr. Hall, surely the well-being of our citizens and our eternal security will more than compensate for any downturn in the markets? Agreed. Sort of citizens should take priority. What are the consequences of keeping our immigration policy relaxed? Aside from keeping us on the path to prosperity, modernity, and continuous improvement, not much. The old man has a sense of humor. Love it. Our current system is good for our era. We also have the capacity. This will allow us to continue protecting investments from foreign countries, which in turn will keep our trade steady. We will be more trustworthy partners. Stability draws money. Stability? What stability? We're already seeing clashes between our people and foreign interlopers. On the contrary, the only way we can achieve stability is through tightening our immigration policy. You heard the lady. Sordland first. I'm ready to make a decision. Yes. Everyone leaned forward, eager to hear my response. We will keep immigration laws relaxed. I'm glad you're making the right choice. We'll be forced to handle new waves of migrants from Magnolia. Our border ports aren't ready. Not only that, we just abandoned the native swords who need our support the most. Also, this will bring a new tide of refugees from Valen. Bergia is already a difficult region to manage. This is shameful! Citizens of Sordland aren't forgotten. Our work for them continues. And now they will compete with foreign immigrants just to put food on their tables. I'm disappointed in you, Rayne. Anything else, Mr. President? Thank you for your contributions. Let's wrap this up. The ministers gathered their documents and rose from their chairs, some with frowns on their faces. I'm looking forward to the upcoming trade talks. Peter and I have been visiting Starport and Vaclavitz in preparation. I'll be coming along to talk with the economy minister. Looking forward to the potential partnership. If we are finished, I need to head off and get the ministry to work on the new policy. Same here. Our border units need to be informed and prepared. Keep up the good work. The ministers dispersed. Document Times. Freedom and Education shows the new privatization initiative has allowed many middle-income households to pay for better education in their districts. We have finally reached a point where our children are allowed to change their destiny by simple freedom of choice. The price may be higher compared to a state-funded education option, but it justified in performance. So, good review so far on that decision, which is good for us. Streamlined nationwide protests quelled. So that problem was solved. Arcadia 8. Very nice. Got a report. Ministry of Justice reported that restructuring of the ministry has been completed with success after the increase of its budget. According to the report, a large portion of the budget was transferred specifically to solve the case backlog at lower courts, which has already helped ease the situation. Additional efforts will be directed at fighting corruption, upholding the integrity of judges, and the consolidation of the rule of law. Minister Moran says she intends to bring back trust in the justice system with more accessibility and accessible and efficient courts, a public information campaign, and by rooting out corruption in society. So far, so good. Alright. Peter, don't get us in trouble. Far from becoming accustomed to my workload as president, I only felt more and more snowed under as weeks passed. It had been ages since I had any time to myself. I was starting to lose my focus, and my temper was growing increasingly thin. Peter was the first to realize I needed a break. After much cajoling, he finally persuaded me to come to a meeting of his new venture, a gentleman's club. For the past few months, he had been hosting a salon of sorts, not just for politicians and businessmen, for also artists, entertainers, people of taste. He told me with a smile on his face. There was only one rule. No wives or girlfriends allowed, hence the name. And so I found myself in front of his new luxury villa in Earlery. Very loud jazz music emanated from inside. I waited and waited. Finally, Peter opened the door. I smelled a whiskey on his breath. Anton, finally, now the real party can start. Come on in. As soon as I entered, Peter closed the door and turned to a small crowd. Gentlemen, a minute of your time, please. I now have the privilege to present to you the man himself, the fourth President of Sordland, Mr. Anton Rayne. I known him for long enough to understand that he was more than a little drunk. He made an elaborate mock curtsy as I passed him and walked into the room. The music stopped and I felt everyone's eyes on me. Thank you, Peter. What's next? A choir? A marching band? No, I'm saving those for your funeral. Peter laughed very hard at his own grim joke before continuing. Dear members, please give a warm welcome to our very special guest. If I may, Anton, please take this. He handed me a glass of whiskey and put his hand on my shoulder. We all know why we're gathered here tonight. To celebrate life. To have a brief escape from our tumultuous professions. I personally don't know any better cure for stress than a little drink. I'll just raise my glass. I raised my glass and the rest of the crowd followed. Now, the tradition dictates that as club president, I have to remind you of the house rules. There are 3. No politics, no wives, no one sober. Cheers! Peter drank the whiskey in his glass in one go. Screw it. I followed suit and drained my glass. It was immediately replenished. Anton Rayne might have the power to make presidential decrees, but I, Peter Vectorn, the president of this club, now declare this party started. Music, go! The band started up again. He is such a bro. After reading the crowd around me, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Let me show you around. We walked through the corridors of his mansion. Statues and painting lined the stark white walls. An arched window provided a view of the neatly manicured grounds, complete with a swimming pool. A grand lesbian marble staircase led to the second story. Peter gestured at the grand crystal chandelier hanging overhead. This chandelier was made in the 18th century. Can you believe it? There's even a hedge maze in the garden. What's the story behind the chandelier? I don't know and I don't care. It just looks expensive and I like it. I'll let you in on a secret. Gus Manger has a lot of contacts in real estate. He brokered a good deal for me. He'll also be here tonight. I can introduce you if you like. What did you promise him in return? Only my money. We continued walking until we circled back to where we had started. So, what do you think of my little hideaway? It's amazing, but I'd hardly call it a hideaway. More like a palace. It certainly doesn't rival yours. Anyway, let's get back to the party. I arranged for some caviar to be brought in from Lesbia. You're going to love it. He opened the door to the main hall and we rejoined the other guests. The music was louder now and the mood decidedly more inebriated. Cocktail waitresses were carrying around plates of canopies, wearing dresses that left little to the imagination. I thought this was a gentleman's club. Would you rather be served by wrinkly old men? Sweetheart, over here! He waved at one of the waitresses as she came over to us. She was in her mid-20s, wearing red lipstick, her blonde hair neatly tied into a ponytail. On her plate were toast points slathered in the lesbian caviar Peter had mentioned. I took a bite. It was rich, salty, tasting of pure seaside. I could almost hear the sound of waves and seagulls. Lesbian caviar, best in the world. I'm telling you, Anton, there are few pleasures in life that are this. As the waitress left to serve another attendee, she flashed a quick smile at Peter over her shoulder. He smiled back, a little too broadly. Sensual. His eyes were still fixed on her, with an expression I remembered from our many nights out together as students. Oh look, there's Gus. Why don't you go talk to him? I will be back shortly. Peter, I'm warning you. Don't make a mistake. Mistake? What are you talking about? I'm just going to the washroom. I'll be back before you know it. He left the room and I headed over to Gus. Gus Mango was standing next to a couple of men I recognized as banking industry magnates. As I approached, all of them turned to me and bowed their heads. Mr. President, a toast to our new member, everyone. Gus and I cleaned our glasses and as the people around us raised theirs. You don't seem at all surprised to see me here. That's because Peter told me you were going to come. He also told me that you might be interested in potential opportunities such as, well, this. He opened his arms, gesturing at our opulent surroundings. Let's take a walk. The balcony has an amazing view of Erlery. We left the room and made our way to the balcony. On the way, he took out 2 cigars and held one out for me. I'm always up for a good cigar. I took the cigar and started smoking it. Mixed with the taste of whiskey, it was delicious. We went out to the balcony. All of Erlery was at our feet. From this vantage point, I was able to see how expansive the building plot was. The swimming pool and the hedge mazes were visible from here. Leaning over the railing, I admired the view for a moment before Gus spoke up. I know you're wondering about the deal Peter made. In a nutshell, thanks to my network, he was able to procure this house for half of the asking price, which would have been impossible under any circumstance. I'll be delighted to discuss a similar arrangement with you. In fact, I have prepared a document with my own personal favorite opportunities. This is the least I can do since you have been generous to many business people in the country. I know it's coming. Yeah. I'm not looking to make any investments at the moment. Real estate is the best investment anyone can make. With the current economic situation, it only makes sense to put your money in such a tangible asset. But I also have a few other opportunities for you to make a side profit if real estate doesn't interest you. Is there a chance I can convince you? Not today. That's my final answer. Very well. I won't push further. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to refresh my drink. See you around. He left to rejoin the party. Alone on the back balcony, I looked out over Ellery. Suddenly I heard a rustling from the hedge maze below. I looked down and saw a silhouette. 2 silhouettes, actually. So close together they seemed to be entangled. I squinted and tried to get a better look. It was definitely 2 people kissing, but I couldn't see either of their faces. I returned to the party and spent some time mingling with the other guests, engaging them in small talk about their businesses, their children, their relationships. Around an hour later, Peter showed up next to me. See, I told you I'd be back before you knew it. It's been an hour. Where were you? I told you, I was in the washroom. Right. I'll be direct. Were you with the waitress? What? No. How could you think that? I'm a married man. You know that you can tell me anything. Hey, you can have her if you want. Anyway, want a drink? Because I do. He poured us 2 large glasses of whiskey, and we drank them in one go. Throughout the party, we drank and drank, just like old times. I woke up the next day with a pounding headache and more than a few regrets. My memory of the evening was hazy, but there was one important detail that kept coming back to me. The red lipstick on Peter's collar. But maybe my memory was playing tricks on me. I don't think it was, Anton. I don't think it was. No, Peter. I think we can put it there for now. We have our wife's speech up next. We'll go ahead and get this report. Privatization education. First privatization plan in the Ministry of Education is in full swing, and the first dozen public schools have transitioned into for-profit organizations after a public bidding process determined by the buyers. Minister of Education, Sarah Walden, said that only a small percentage of all institutions will be allowed to transition. It is expected that the ministry will gather a substantial amount of private funds from the initiative. So on the day, Peter Veterans throws lavish party. Oh, great. Of course they threw it back in our faces. Of course. Sordland from the Geopolitico. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has announced that Sordland will accept the financial aid of Acacia. So far, it appears that President Rayne has followed through with his campaign promise to look westward towards Acacia. His intentions to take a side in the international arena and align Sordland with a major superpower will certainly have lasting effects in the region. Although on the surface this may appear to simply a boost to Sordland's crippled economy, the real motive is still unclear. President Rayne's move might be a signal of a potential alliance between Sordland and other countries in ATO, which makes an alliance with us be a probable outcome, which is why you accept the aid. Alright, when we have our next session, we'll have the Benfey Festival, which I'm sure won't get us in any trouble at all, and we'll go from there. Leave a like if you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel if you have not thus far. And VNSound.com, it is VNSound.com for more entertaining moments such as this.